Tonight on Sports Night in Auburn, it's about that time. That time is basketball season. It started in Tuesday in Birmingham, Alabama for SEC Basketball Media Day. We spoke with Bruce Pearl, Joleigh Broom, and Denver Jones. Next, we'll take a quick crash course of where basketball left off last season and how the season's course crashed. With a new season on the horizon, there are spotlights and star players to keep an eye on. We've got predictions, expectations, and a deep dive into the grueling schedule of rivaled opponents. Lace up your hoop and shoes, because this is a Sports Night in Auburn basketball special. Let's go.
Auburn, Alabama, the best atmosphere in all of college sports.
He drives, it's lit.
Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn.
That ball is gone deep to the left.
Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn.
Sideline, going to the end.
Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn.
And welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn.
Your hoop dreams are coming true. Basketball season is a little more than just a week away. It's going to be a season full of excitement, and we have been at the scorers table waiting to check in and tell you all about it. Welcome to this basketball special edition of Sports Night in Auburn. I'm Vince Wolfram. First things first, the more you know about the past, the better prepared you are for the future. So we're going to take the clock back a little bit to March of 2024, the end of last season for Bruce Pearl and the Auburn basketball squad. The team finished with 27 wins and 8 losses, with highlights to make note of in both of those categories. One of those highlights was winning the 2024 SEC tournament. Auburn entered as the 4 seed and left victorious after wins over South Carolina, Mississippi State, and Florida in the championship game. This was the 3rd time in program history the Tigers won the conference tourney, the other 2 coming in 1985 and again in 2019 before the team's first ever trip to the Final Four. Unfortunately for Auburn, as they traveled from Nashville's SEC title to Spokane, Washington for the first round of the NCAA tournament, they quickly discovered that yesterday's home runs don't win today's games. As the 4-seeded Tigers faced off against the 13-seeded Yale Bulldogs, fans saw a different Auburn squad. The Tigers fought, though. Joleigh Broom poured in 24 points and 13 boards. Denver Jones added 17 points to that jar, and a 13.5 rebound game from Jalen Williams weren't enough. Yale's John Paul Kaitis shot Auburn into a first-round exit with 28 points. This game was a shocker for Auburn faithful. Regardless of the outcome, the season was largely considered a big step in the right direction. Over the summer, some things did change, though. Cohen Dalzell is rocking with me on this hoop special, and he's got more on the look of the Auburn basketball roster.
One of the main obstacles Coach Pearl faced over the offseason was the departure of grad student and star forward Jalen Williams. Williams was a do-it-all scorer who also contributed on the defensive end of the ball, and his departure to the NBA left a large void for the Tigers to fill. Williams went undrafted, but was signed by the Denver Nuggets organization and will rotate between their NBA and G League teams throughout the year. Another major departure was senior Lior Berman. Berman contributed last year to Auburn's team in limited minutes, but still found a path to continue his basketball career after signing to play professional ball in Israel. Other departures include senior Carter Sabera and grad student Jalen Harper. Although Jalen Williams was the biggest loss for Auburn basketball, he wasn't the only one. With the transfer portal becoming more fluid than ever, multiple Auburn players took the opportunity to explore their options and move on from the Plains. Point guard Trey Donaldson was the first to leave Auburn, as a sophomore wanted a school that could offer him more NIL money. Donaldson is now playing in the Big Ten for the Michigan Wolverines. Sporadic senior K.D. Johnson was next. The combo guard took his talents to George Mason University to play in the Atlantic 10 Conference for the Patriots. The last and most shocking transfer of all was made by freshman starting point guard Aiden Holloway. Holloway struggled from the three-point line all year for the Tigers and placed blame on Auburn's offensive system for his shooting slump. In an unexpected move that betrayed the hearts of Auburn fans across the country, Holloway switched allegiances and took his talents to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Since that day, Tigers fans have marked March 8th on their calendar as the day they get to welcome Holloway back to Neville Arena.
Cohen, welcome is definitely relative. Aiden Holloway, as we know, transferred to the school up the road that reps the crimson-colored threads. Aiden spoke with NCAA basketball correspondent Andy Katz about his move from Alabama.
I just feel like the fit here at Alabama is more catered like to my game. Auburn was a great program, like a great winning program. It just wasn't fit for my game. And it's all love for them people over there. I tried to go here. I feel like this was the best place for me to get better.
One coach who is going to enjoy this new piece to his offense is Nate Oates, the head coach at the University of Alabama. Alabama added 4 transfers to its lineup this year, one of which was Holloway. The worlds of Auburn and Alabama are not too far apart, and they ended up colliding on Tuesday at SEC Media Day when Nate Oates arrived as Bruce Pearl was making his way out. 2 coaches who have raised the bar for basketball in this state having a laugh before addressing the media. We heard Nate Oates talk about Pearl's former guard, Aiden Holloway. Take a listen.
Even some of the transfers that have come in, just like the leadership, these guys have been better than even what we thought they were going to be. You know, Holloway just wants to get back to playing really good basketball. He's been really good too. So just the kind of the character and leadership of the new guys, and some of the young guys are maybe better than what we thought they were going to be here early.
Before we head to break, we're going to take a look at some SEC poll trivia. Let's do it. Which player was named to the preseason All-SEC first team? A, Chad Baker-Mazara, B, Denver Jones, C, Dylan Cardwell, or D, Janai Broome? We will have the answer when we return. Welcome back to this special basketball edition of Sports Night in Auburn. We left you with a trivia question, and now we've got the answer. And your answer is D, Janai Broome. Janai, he's coming back for another season on the Plains, and he made it to the SEC All-First Team. Take a look at this list right here. Mark Sears from Alabama, one of the top guards in the country, led him to the Final Four last year. Zakai Ziegler, a point guard from Tennessee. He's been a dog and definitely a good competitor over the last couple of seasons. Wade Taylor from Texas A&M, and Buzz Aldrin, point guard you want to keep your eye on. Clayton Jr. from Florida, a team that is certainly on the rise. Shout out to my friend Micah for that one. And our guy Janai Broome, who is seemingly one of the top players, if not the top big man in college basketball. I know Bruce Pearl is expecting a big season from him, and supposedly he has the green light to start shooting threes now. He averaged 16 points a game last year to go along with 8.5 rebounds, so the team expects a lot from big number 4 this season. Speaking of Janai, on Tuesday, October 15th, that was SEC Men's Basketball Media Day in Birmingham, Alabama. Eagle Eyes JoJo Cavanagh, Jack Corbett, and I were all able to attend the event and hear all the preseason scoop from across the SEC. And we made sure to bring you a story, of course. Here's Jack Corbett with more.
Auburn men's basketball traveled up to Birmingham, Alabama this week to attend SEC Basketball Media Day. Head coach Bruce Pearl, big man Janai Broome, and combo guard Denver Jones all talked to the media about this upcoming season and their expectations. One of the questions head coach Bruce Pearl answered is who will be running the show this year at the point guard position. Here's coach with more.
Denver's had probably as good a off-season as any of my returning players, and I think he'll be able to handle some of those responsibilities at point guard. J.P. Bergis will also play the position. Todd Pettifor is going to play some of the position.
Another big topic of interest for Coach Pearl, Denver Jones, and Janai Broome was
Miles Kelly.
All 3 of them mentioned him as the best shooter on the team this year, and with the departures of players like Trey Donaldson, Jalen Williams, and Aiden Holloway, that will be key for this Auburn team. Another major storyline from Media Day was Coach Cal rocking red instead of the normal blue. John Calipari was at Media Day representing Arkansas, and it was throwing people off a little bit. Another new face in a new place was UK head coach Mark Pope. Pope came to Media Day in the Letterman, and other coaches throughout the day, including Coach Pearl, were asked about Pope's arrival to the SEC. On top of speaking to journalists across the nation, both players and coaches went on the SEC Now show and the Paul Feinbaum show, and Coach Pearl and Janai Broome were no exception. Another point of emphasis for Coach Pearl is that 40 basketball student athletes have earned their bachelor's degree in the past 10 years at Auburn University, a stat that puts everything in perspective and one that Coach Pearl can take pride in from his legendary career. That's all the coverage we have from Birmingham. Auburn basketball will play their first game against Vermont on November 6th. For Eagle Eye TV, I'm Jack Corbett.
Thank you, Jack. SEC Media Day is such a cool way to get a glimpse into what all conferences, coaches, and players are feeling, hoping, and preparing for as they enter a new season. 3 Auburn names took the stand on Tuesday, and Cohen, you're here to break down each and every one of them. Cohen, what's happening, my man?
During his press conference, head coach Bruce Pearl focused on one of the most daunting parts of his season, their schedule. In non-conference play alone, the Tigers will face Duke, Purdue, Ohio State, and Houston. Here's Coach with more from Media Day.
You know, sometimes you got to act like you belong. And you can't always control the recruiting, you can't control the transfer portal, you can't control a lot of things that are happening, but you can control who you schedule. And just the fact that Kelvin Sampson thought enough of Auburn's basketball program to want to get involved in that neutral game, or that Matt Painter, coming off a national championship game, thought that bringing Auburn back to Indianapolis in a year was going to be a game that they could, draw, so on and so forth. It's what we've worked for.
Denver Jones also talked about Auburn's schedule at Media Day, but decided to focus more on the confidence him and the team have been instilled with from Coach Pearl scheduling them such tough competition.
Oh yeah, we're looking forward to it. I feel like that's the main reason VP instilled this offseason schedule, because he believed in his team so much. And I feel like we brought in the right guys to be able to attack this schedule.
Joleigh Broom veered away from talking non-conference schedule, and instead he talked about what it's going to take for this Auburn team to go back-to-back in the SEC tournament and have a good run in March.
We definitely want to go back-to-back, and we're definitely looking forward to going back-to-back. And that's the goal, to go back-to-back. We know other people don't want that, and they want to try to win themselves. But we're ready for the gauntlet ahead of us, and we're trying to go back-to-back. What should people know? That we're going to bring it every night. And we're still hungry. We're not satisfied with what we did last year. It's New Year, so we're still coming.
LSU head coach Matt McMahon, the former head coach at Morehead State, spoke about his former center, Joleigh Broom, who, if you didn't know, played at Morehead State before arriving in Auburn, saying Broom is one of the best shot blockers in the country and is constantly improving his game, as you can see, shooting from behind the arc. How you like it? Coming back from this break, we are going to talk trivia answers, and we've got another poll question for you. We're grilling you on the polls today, and the question is, which player was named to the preseason All-SEC third team? A, Chad Baker-Mazara, B, Denver Jones, or C, Dylan Cardwell, or D, Chaney Johnson? You won't believe it, but we'll have the answer when we come back. Welcome back to this special edition of Sports Night in Auburn, basketball edition. We're going to answer the trivia question that we left you with. Which player was named to the preseason All-SEC third team? And the answer is letter A. It's our guy, Chad Baker-Mazara, CBM, and he is poised for a great year this year, and he's in good company here. Jackson Robinson from Kentucky, the first-year transfer from BYU, following Mark Pope, along with other great players from the newly additioned Texas to the SEC, along with Florida, South Carolina, CBM coming in there in the third spot. The lefty is set for a big year. Last year, he didn't end the season how he would have liked, being ejected from the NCAA tournament game against Yale, but this year he's back for more. The athletic small forward, he stands about 6'9", averages 10 points a game from San Diego State. He's somebody that Bruce, I know, expects to come in and fill a role that maybe be missing with Jaylin Williams moving on to the pros. Chad Baker-Mazara will be a huge piece for the Tigers this year. We talked about the graduates now. Now we're going to talk about transfers. Well, why don't we talk about this year's roster, which is star-studded with huge names. Cohen, he's got more on the stars of the Auburn basketball roster.
Even with the big names departing the program over the offseason, Coach Pearl arguably improved his team between his work in the transfer portal and on the high school circuit. True freshmen Tahad Pettiford and Ja'Kai Howard, who are ranked 35th and 63rd in the ESPN Top 100 respectively, were both heavily recruited by Coach Pearl and ultimately chose Auburn over schools such as Kansas and Kentucky. Pettiford is a left-handed point guard who uses his bounce and finesse around the rim to finish over large defenders. Howard is a combo guard who played for Overtime Elite and is widely regarded as the most athletic player on the team, and a guy that will make the roof blow off Neville Arena this year. Coach Pearl expects both freshmen to play massive roles this year in Auburn's championship push. Not only are the Tigers bringing in Pettiford and Howard, but also freshman Joleigh and redshirt freshman Drake Cardwell. However, Shea, a small guard who is lights out from three, and Cardwell, a wing who can score from all three levels, are expected to struggle to find minutes this year behind this deep Auburn roster. Here's Mia with some transfer news.
Coach Pearl also brought in 3 transfers from the portal. With the departures of Aiden Holloway and Trey Donaldson, Pearl wanted to ensure that incoming freshman Tahid Pettiford had an experienced point guard to learn from. So he recruited Furman point guard Japid Pegues. The senior hit the infamous three-pointer in the first round of the 2023 March Madness that lifted number 13 Furman over number 4 Virginia. And Pearl hopes that his veteran leadership will rub off on Pettiford and other young guards on the team. The next transfer to Auburn was made by senior forward Jaheim Hudson. Turtle, as his teammates like to call him, is fresh off a quiet year at SMU, but garnered national attention for his potential after putting up 21 points and 4 rebounds against Indiana State in the first round of the NIT. Auburn's final transfer is senior guard Miles Kelly. Kelly finished his last year at Georgia Tech, where he was the leading scorer for his team. Kelly is widely regarded as the best shooter on the team, and even Denver Jones admitted that Kelly is the team's best shooter at SEC Basketball Media Day. All 3 transfers are expected to leave a major impact on Auburn this year.
It was a big week full of releases for national college basketball rankings. Let's just go poll to poll here, and we make our start with the AP poll, where Auburn was ranked just outside the top 10 at number 11, as you can see here. Kansas, Alabama, and UConn took home the 1, 2, and 3 spots. Want to hear an interesting stat? Based on the AP poll, Auburn is set to face teams ranked number 2 twice, number 4, 5, 7, 12, 13, 14, 16, 19, 21, 23, and 24 twice. That is what we mean by the hardest schedule in program history, spelled out for you. Next poll we go, Ken Palm rankings. Auburn is number 3, with the top 10 teams in the league being listed on the schedule for the Tigers, including number 1 Houston and number 2 Duke. Lastly, the SEC preseason poll has Auburn finishing 2nd in the conference, behind Alabama. First time the conference has been 16 teams deep, with Oklahoma and Vandy rounding out the bottom at 15 and 16. A lot of honor there, and with a schedule like that, we can only hope that the play lives up to that level. Cohen and Mia, you two have more on the schedule.
Thanks, Vince. Like you said, this Auburn schedule is daunting, and the Tigers will have their hands full throughout the season. Throughout this year, Auburn will face 12 currently ranked teams: Houston, Iowa State, Duke, Texas, Tennessee, Florida, Arkansas, Texas A&M, Kentucky, and they'll play Ole Miss and Alabama twice. Auburn faces 4 ranked opponents in non-conference play alone, with arguably the most intriguing game being against Duke and freshman phenom Cooper Flagg. Flagg is the projected number 1 pick in this year's NBA draft, and it will be interesting to see how Auburn matches up against such a coveted athlete.
Now with a more in-depth preview of Auburn's non-conference schedule, here's Eagle Eye's Encyclopedia, Micah Farmer.
Yeah, Auburn's non-con is no joke this year, starting with the game versus Houston. Coach Kelvin Sampson always has that team really scrappy, ready to go. Great defensive guard play. You're going to see that from LJ Cryer, especially. It's a very competitive team. You're going to need to take the chances you can when you have them, because you're not going to get a ton of them versus this very stingy Houston defense. Then versus Duke in Cameron Indoor, Duke has Tyrese Proctor, who is one of the best facilitators in the country. Cooper Flagg, also super highly touted recruit out of Montverde, probably going to be playing the 3 for them this year, so they're going to space it out to him, probably have a lot of those quick passes going along, so you're really going to need to clog the passing lanes if you're Auburn, buckle down on defense, and then really attack the rim versus Duke, because with Janai Broome, he's a mismatch with a lot of teams, and Duke is one of those, in my opinion. Then versus Ohio State in Atlanta, this is an interesting team led by Michi Johnson, who has returned to Ohio State, and also Bruce Thornton, who is the leading returning scorer for the Buckeyes. Those are 2 very solid players for Ohio State, and you're going to have to stop both of them. Michi Johnson, I know, did not have a good game for South Carolina when they played at Auburn this past year. If you shut him down a similar way, I think you can take care of Ohio State fairly easily. Then the game versus Purdue, As John Rothstein loves to say, death, taxes, and Matt Painter. This Purdue team seems inevitable always. Braden Smith is a very good shooting guard for them, and Fletcher Lawyer is even better outside. This guy can shoot lights out from the perimeter, elite 3-ball. Braden Smith also a solid shooter, and this Purdue team, is always going to have size down low. That's the case again this year. So there you can really attack you from anywhere. You're going to need to be methodical. Purdue can really put up points down. These aren't the old Purdue teams that just would wear you down. They still can do that, but they'll also put up points. Then finally, the Maui Invitational. Guaranteed to play TJ Otzelberger's Iowa State Cyclones. Is a team that returns all 4 of their top scores from last year, and that's a very hard thing to do. So Iowa State, I think, is going to be a real threat in the Big 12 this season. They play fundamentally sound basketball, don't necessarily shoot the 3 a ton, but they are going to look to drive right at you and then kick outside. So if you're an Auburn winger or a perimeter defender, do not abandon your guy on the outside to go crash down inside, because they will kick it out. They will beat you that way. Then if you beat Iowa State, you're probably going to have to come up against either UConn or North Carolina at some point in this invitational. You know what UConn is under Dan Hurley. This is an absolute stalwart of a team. Year after year, the last couple years, they've just been a buzzsaw, completely unbeatable. It's going to be fundamentally sound basketball. They're going to come right at you. High-paced as well with UConn. They're really going to be able to wear you down. So you're going to need to be on your absolute best game versus the Huskies if you're going to stand a chance. Then for UNC, if RJ Davis is making it rain, it's going to be a long day. So you need to really buckle down on him, defend the perimeter versus Davis. If you can do that, the rest of the North Carolina offense might struggle a little bit because they really don't have that main scorer outside of Davis, in my opinion. And then if you're Auburn at that point, you can just really take it methodically, just get your consistent good looks. And I think if you do that, that will be enough to come out on top of a team versus North Carolina. Outside of those in Maui, it's also featuring Colorado, Dayton, Michigan State, and Memphis, 4 other solid programs. So you never know. Maybe one of those can catch you by surprise as well. None of those teams are a cakewalk, and none of these non-con games are in general. All a very good non-con slate for Auburn, and if they can take advantage of it, you saw what that did for Alabama's tournament resume in March Madness last year. So definitely a schedule you can look to take advantage of. Back to you, Vince.
The best analyst we got. Thank you, Micah. As we wait for the tip-off of this basketball season, we got a nice glimpse into the star power on display with this year's group last night. We'll have more when we come back. This Thursday night was an electric one. Now, I don't know exactly what your night consisted of, but mine was filled with lemonade, country music, and a basketball bonanza. Tip-off at Toomer's Corner went down last night, and the vibes were high, but the bounce in the dunk contest may have been the highest. My man Jack Corbett has the takeover from Toomer's Corner.
Tip-off at Toomer's is back. The Auburn community gathered in downtown Auburn to watch some hoops, Cole Swindell, and fall festivities. Auburn basketball decided there was no better place to set up than right in the heart of campus, Toomer's Corner. Obby entertained the fans before the teams came out, but the fans were growing in numbers quick, and they were ready to see some action. Talia Scott came out first for women's basketball, followed by Caitlin Duhan. Good vibes were brought by the younger Cardwell Drake, followed by Janai Broom with some dance moves, and then the WWE Auburn champion, Dylan Cardwell. The first event of the night was the Shooting Stars 3-point competition, and although Chad Baker-Mazzara and Denver Jones put up good performances, it was Reed Trapp who hit the half-court shot and brought home the gold for his team. However, the fans wanted to see some high flyers, and they would get just that. First up, a Darren Scott throwing it down, but wait a second. Is Ja'Kai Howard really about to jump over head coach Bruce Pearl? You bet. For Howard, just jumping over people wasn't enough though. Tahad Pettiford was his next victim, and he decided to pull out the East Bay, going through the legs over Tahad. Although Chaney Johnson did ultimately win this dunk contest, Ja'Kai Howard was the star of the show, jumping over 3 people in the final round, but ultimately the score between his 2 final dunks was not more than Chaney's. Finally, it was time for a good old game of knockout, and although it was supposed to be fun and lighthearted, the guys got competitive quick. Chad Baker-Mazzara got Tahad Pettiford out, and in the final round, it was Janai Broom versus Adia Young. Broom got the dub and had the celebration to follow. The next time we'll see Auburn basketball in action is versus Vermont in their home opener on November 6th. Jack Corbett, EETV, Auburn News Leader.
Thank you, Jack. For the last segment of our show, it's the segment that everybody's waiting for, Trending Tigers. And we're going to take it from Toomer's Corner last night because there was a dunk contest last night. And if you missed it, I feel bad for you because it was awesome. We're going to rank 1 through 5 our favorite dunks from last night's tip-off at Toomer's. Starting off with number 5, Chaney Johnson. Look at this guy. 31, can fly. Look at that. The 360. Pumped over the right shoulder for the jam. Let's watch it again here. Chaney, 1, 2. We'll take that for number 5. That was a good start to the day. Looking at number 4, we've got Ja'Kai Howard with his freshman teammate Tahad. Pat foot off the glass. Come on. Thing of beauty. Off the glass, windmill jam. You don't understand how hard that is until you watch it in person. We're going to look at number 3 now. Back to Chaney Johnson, the dunk champ. Let's take a look here. He can soar. I'm telling you what, we need to see more of that Chaney this season with the left hand. I love it. On to number 2, back to Ja'Kai Howard, who stole the night with this dunk over, guess who? Bruce Pearl and Auburn the Tiger. Both of them could not believe what they just saw. Look at Ja'Kai Howard again. Come on! That's taking the number 2 spot on our ranking. And now to number 1, Ja'Kai Howard again. This time over 3 big men. Come on! Look at Ja'Kai. Big number 3 says it's over. That's it. The dunk contest ended there with Ja'Kai over 6'9", 6'10", and 7' doing Corbett. Made it look so easy, Cohen. I'm telling you what. Cohen, Mia, I've never seen anything quite like that one. And I tell you what, that is a great way to wrap up this basketball special edition of Sports Night in Auburn. So make sure to follow all our social medias down in the description and tune into Eagle Eye TV for basketball highlights all season long. For Cohen, Mia, and for all of our Eagle Eye sports team, I'm Vince Wolfram. Good night and War Eagle.